with me as I set that up. And I believe I'm recording now. Just want to double check that that's what it appears to be doing.
Yes, it's all good.
Yes, it's doing it. Good. Well, and somehow my slide presentation is moving when it shouldn't be. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Coach Credential. What is right for you? I am delighted to have you here. I recognize some of the names on the participant list and some I don't. And I know that we have people from many, many different parts of the world. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I want to just say a little bit about myself. I want to introduce a couple of people, and I mostly want to say that I want this to be of value for you, so that you walk away saying, this was worth my time to come to this webinar today. So what I'm going to do is just, first of all, this is me, Allison Hendren. I am CEO and founder of Coaching Out of the Box. There's a whole pile of stuff that I'm saying on the screen here. But what I want you to know is I am absolutely passionate about the power and value of coaching. And having been in coaching for 20 plus years now, I have seen what happens when people learn how to coach and also experience the skills of coaching. It is incredible. And we even managed to, at one point, present some findings that that an organization we worked with came up with as a result of people experiencing coaching and learning coaching skills. And I'm also passionate about having people be qualified and credentialed as much as possible, because if ever there was a time that we need coaching, it's now. And we need those skills out there in a bigger way. And you would have seen, or you might have seen, our vision and mission, which is, what if everyone had coaching skills? What would things be like? So that's a little bit about me. I'd also like to introduce, and I'm just going to move the slide across, our program advisor, Sandra Mall. And Sandra, excuse me, our program advisor, Sandra Anger. And there she is. And so I'm going to let Sandra say just a couple of things about herself, and then I'm going to mention Sandra Mall in a minute.
Yes, hello. We do have two Sandras working at the school, so we address each other as Sandra A and Sandra M. So I am Sandra A. So hello, everybody. As it says on the slide, I'm the graduate of the first fast track that was offered by Coaching Out of the Box, starting in 2016. I was delighted with that program. So that's why when Allison asked us if there was somebody that was interested to be the program advisor, I said, me, because I love the school so much and I want to talk about it. So, so I've been coaching since 2016. I was a vocal coach prior to that, and since 2000. And I don't know, at one point I thought, well, you know what, I need more. So more life coaching. And I've been working with the coach in ICF Coach for the last 8 years. And I saw the deep transformation that can come from coaching, which led me to wanted to become a coach as well. So that's a little bit about me.
Good. Thank you, Sandra A. And Sandra M is also here, Sandra Mall, excuse me. And Sandra will be, go ahead and say so. Sandra is our fantastic operations person and technical support as well. So Sandra, if you'd like to just say a couple of things.
Just wanted to say hi and thanks for joining us today, and reach out at any time with your questions. We're always happy to help.
She'll be observing the chat area, because we want to try to answer as many questions as possible if and when they come up. And so I want to talk about what are the objectives, and we would have mentioned this in our newsletter and our various communications that went out to all of you. But I just want to clarify, why hold a credential? Why do that? Which one are you going to get? What to look for? How will you know you are successful? And interspersed as we move through this is Q&A. But first of all, what I'd like to do is launch a poll. And if you'd be willing to, wait a second here, I just have to push the right button. Anyway, if you'd be willing to, I'm going to launch it right now. If you'd be willing to just answer these questions as best you can, it will help us as the webinar unfolds to get a sense of the kinds of people that are coming to this webinar today. And the great news about this webinar is that we've got some of our webinars can be very large and we can have many, many people. And today it's not as large. So we really hope that we can provide you with some value. So I'll give it a little bit of time so that you can answer these questions, and then we'll move on from there. And I'll publish it as well once it's done, because it helps for us all to know what people are coming to these webinars for. Almost about another 15 seconds or so, I think, and then we'll launch it. Almost there. Okay, so I'm gonna just end the poll. So here we go, and I'm gonna share it, so we can kind of all see what this is about. So there's a number of people who, as you can see, want to become a full or part-time coach with their own practice. And some, no, that's not what I want to do, and some aren't sure about that. Want to continue working in an organization but add coaching skills to be more effective. Yes, okay, great. That's a good one as well. I want to have a second career in coaching after I retire. Okay, that's great. Many people we speak to have that as a goal for themselves, and it's absolutely possible. I want to continue working in my profession, but supplement this with part-time coaching. Yeah, another common response. Okay. And I wanted to develop coaching skills to become a more effective leader. All of you. Yes, fantastic. Well, that's great. Well, you're in the right spot then. So we'll just, I'll just stop sharing that, and we'll just carry on here. So just bear with me for a second. We'll move forward. Okay. So why hold a credential? What's the whole point of that? And I welcome your questions and comments as well. Well, here's the deal. What we know, and there's a very large coach organization called the International Coach Federation, and they hired, they've been around for a long time, and they hired PricewaterhouseCoopers to do a global coaching awareness study in 2017. And they published the results, and there's lots more than simply this on this study. But one of the things that it said was that the 83% of the people who took this study said that it was important that their coach held a certification or a credential of some sort. That's what they said. And now that is interesting, because this whole area of coaching is really still an emerging profession. And it's when I got into coaching 20 years ago, there were no credentials at that time. There was no one particular body that was an association of coaches. There were a variety of smaller ones, but there really wasn't anything. It was, I called it the Wild West days of coaching. But one of the things that myself, as I embraced coaching and I was educating myself and developing as a coach, is I said to myself, I want this to be a profession. I want there to be standards and ethics and requirements, because I felt that if we didn't do that, if that didn't happen, it could dilute the power and the value of coaching, and that people could simply call themselves a coach, and some do, that don't have, are not adhering to any ethics and standards, or haven't had to qualify and haven't had to get particular types of education. Because I felt for myself when I was putting myself out there as a coach, that it would also help me in terms of when I was speaking about what I did, because people would say, well, what gives you the right to call yourself a coach? And, or why are you doing this? What have you done to get there? And I really felt that it would make my life easier as well, and grow my own personal confidence if I had a particular, some sort of a credential that meant something. And so just that alone, and now at 2017, at that time, like I said, people weren't, quite up on a lot of this. But as it's grown, as the profession has grown, and one of the things that I have, because I was early days to it, I did get involved as well in growing the profession. And as we see in 2017, when PricewaterhouseCoopers did the global coaching awareness study, they found that now, this many years later, 83% are saying that. So for me, my opinion is it's a no-brainer. And it's also what I feel about this as well, is you want to make it, whether you're internal in an organization and you're wanting to be an internal coach in the organization, and some of you may not want to go this full extensive, this full route to get a credential. But what it does is it makes it easier for people to go, oh, okay, she's got a credential, and so, or he's got a credential. So it makes it just makes them feel, oh, I'm just like when you go hire an accountant or you go to any kind of a professional, it just, you want to know that they've had to go through some rigor, etc. in having that happen. And I just want to double check my screen here. Okay, we're doing good. All right, and so that's why I feel it's important to hold a credential, because for some of you, there's many things that we've got to deal with. Let's not make it hard. All right, so which one? Because there's many people, or there's various things you can do where you've taken a couple of hours of coach training, or you've gone for a weekend or something like that. And you might get, oh, well, I just took this particular program or whatever. And that's great. That's there's nothing wrong with that. However, again, my feeling is that you want to hold a credential that's recognized, that the public is aware of. How do you decide that? Well, I have a bias and I'm going to share that. But you decide that, in my opinion, based on what's the largest, what's the most known out there in the marketplace. And that to me is really important. And what we're finding now, this many years later, when people are looking for a coach, their awareness about one particular organization comes out much stronger than others. And the organization is the International Coach Federation. They are now the largest professional association of coaches in the world. They're in, and I've got my notes here and I want to make sure I've got it. Yeah, they are in 147 countries and they have 35,000 members. And I want to just emphasize, I do not work for the ICF. I happen to be a credentialed coach with the ICF, and I'm a member of the ICF, but I do not work for them. Although they should maybe be sending me something here. But anyway, they're the largest. And what they've done, certainly since I've been involved, which was in the early days, they have gone through so much work and effort to define what is coaching. What are the ethics and standards of coaching? What are the key competencies of coaching? And also, certainly, they've supported their members in additional education, various webinars they'll put on. They've got chapters all over the world, many on the ground and some virtual. They also, as I mentioned, they are the most well-known. And they actually have 3 different certifications you can get. And you can start off with the first one, which is the ACC. And I'll share a little bit more about that as the webinar unfolds. They have a PCC credential and an MCC credential, which is it requires extensive amount of experience and training, etc. And like I say, I'll share that in a little bit. They currently have 22,905 coaches who hold a credential in 119 countries. So what we're seeing is that one holds weight. And so to me, it's get that one. That's my feeling, because it's the most known. Regardless of what training you take, get that one. And that one is, you can apply for it and there's a process and so on. And we'll speak a little bit more about that. But get something that will make it as easy as possible for people, whether you're internal in an organization and you're an internal coach, whether you're external, whether you're doing a bit of both, etc. Get something like that. It'll make it it can make it much, much easier for you when you go out there. And I want to just share a little bit more, because sometimes people, I want to define what coaching is as determined. And we, many members of the ICF worked very, very hard in coming up with what is coaching. And this is how we define it, and how I define it, certainly with the work that we do at Coaching Out of the Box. And that is, you can see, partnering with, and all of you can read, but I still think it's a nice, powerful, potent statement, with clients, customers, colleagues, or employees in a thought-provoking and creative process that inspires them to maximize their personal and professional potential. That, to me, is that is the definition that we describe coaching. That's what it is, and everything comes from that. So I'm curious, and I should have asked this before. A number of you are budding coaches. A number of you may already be practicing coaching, and I'm curious. Actually, I'm going to ask a question, and Sandra Auger does not know I'm asking her this, and I'm curious. When you made a choice, you are shortly going to be applying for your ACC credential with the ICF, right?
Correct.
What is making you choose to do that?
like you talked about, it's feeling legitimate. Feeling when clients call me and I tell them I'm on the process of being ICF certified, the International Coaching Federation, it gives me credibility with clients. And they believe more that I'm a great coach. Because everybody can call themselves a coach at this point, and I feel so sad about that. And that's why I want to be part of the largest organization in the world, to feel that I have a leg to stand on when I talk to people about my coaching skills.
Okay, thank you.
No worries.
Good. And I'm just going to quickly check if anybody's coming up with questions at this point. I'm just quickly going across and having a look. So far, I think, okay. Well, and anyway, Sandra, you'll be mentioning if that comes up or if we need to respond to something. Great. Okay, so there's the commercial for the ICF and my opinion about what credential. But here's some other things that you need to ask yourself as you're pondering. I know some said they weren't sure what they were going to do. Some are going to be internal, some are external, some want to do this when they're retired. Or add it into other work that they do. And by the way, I forgot to mention this. Many coaches that I know of and have worked with, etc., have a mix. It is very common that a coach will be doing some executive coaching, perhaps one-on-one coaching. Some will get into team coaching. Some will be doing other things completely separate from coaching, meaning they'll be doing some consulting. Or they'll be, as I think we saw in the poll, they'll be leveraging this as a leader to support them in being a better leader and being better with a better leader for the people that they work with. So here's some questions to ask yourself as you're moving through this. What is the vision that you have for your career and business? How are you going to know? And let's even go out, 5 years from now, that whatever choices you're making now in your career and your life are going to be aligned and working for you. What is that vision that you have? And so in my case, when I got into coaching, and just to give an example, I had been in the corporate environment. I'd also had my own, some businesses of my own, and I was actually getting bored with what I was doing, and I wanted something that would give me more flexibility. I had children. I wanted to be able to have that flexibility with my family, and I wanted to stretch myself, and I wanted to create, in my case, my own business. In my case, and so I had to really think about that, and what was that going to look like, and how was I going to know that this was going to be successful for me? And the one thing that I can share with you, obviously I'm a longtime coach, so obviously something worked. But what I didn't know at the time was if it was in fact going to work. It was still, not, a lot of people would say to me, when I said I was a coach, in my case I was saying that term, they automatically assumed a business coach. They didn't automatically assume that. They automatically assumed, I was a soccer coach or something like that. And we don't get that very often anymore. But think about for yourselves, what is your vision for your career and your business? And what I'm seeing and what I've watched as this profession has grown is that the internal use within organization has grown dramatically, and that adding coaching ability and coaching education to your resume really helps. It can support you in obtaining certain particular jobs within the organization, that it again adds to your credibility within, with your skill set that you have. So think about that. What is your vision going to be? The other thing is, what will a credential do for you? And so Sandra Anger mentioned, well, it just added, it made it, I think you said something to the effect of you wanted to make it, that you easier for you. But what is it that you want it to do for you? That will be very, very important as well. The other thing is, what time and resources can you invest? So for example, in my case, I'm just using myself as an example, actually, and it might be interesting, Sandra Anger, for you to comment as well in a minute. But I was supporting a family. So I had to have work. I couldn't just take this, take training and so on and barrel in right away, because I knew it was going to take time. So how could I do this? What kind of education could I get, and what amount of resources did I have to invest in developing my coaching career? While I was still working. And so in my case, I had to be able to do this outside of work hours. And fortunately, I was able to find coach training that allowed me to do that, and was, for me, reasonably priced, because I was the sole breadwinner for my family. And so I needed to also, I couldn't just, even though I wanted to, I couldn't just drop everything and just focus on this. And so think about that. What is it that's going to, what are you going to be able to do for yourself? And here's another piece, and this is I think another. Well, actually, excuse me, I forgot to mention, Sandra, did you have anything to add to that? I know I mentioned I was going to ask you.
Well, I guess for me it was kind of like the same, because I needed to do this while I was working. I have a full-time job. So it was to combine those two things, but I was dedicated and I really wanted to get my credentials. So for me, I said, okay, let's just do this. Let's talk to my boss and make this work. But, and reasonably priced as well, which I appreciated. But yeah, it has to be a commitment, right? You have to really want to do this. And for me, I really wanted to do this. I think that helped, because at that point, when you have a commitment to yourself, you follow through, right? So, but that was definitely, you have to make time for it. You have to make time for your homework, make time for the coaching that you're doing outside of class. But I was ready. So for me, that was just, I just incorporated it in my life.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. And this fourth question, what is the best choice for you right now? So again, as I mentioned, what is the vision for your career and business? And you want whatever you do to align with your goals and objectives. You want to make sure those align with whatever choices you make for certification, etc. And I think another piece to this that is important to consider as well is, how are you going to leverage your training and qualifications? Because that will be important to consider as well. How are you going to leverage that? And just something I would say is that I add my credential. Obviously, I add my credential to my name. So in my case, I say Allison Hendren, MCC, first of all, and it's on anything anywhere where I have my information and so on. But how else are you going to leverage that? What is going to help you there? And in my case, I joined the ICF. It was in its earlier days, and it's grown dramatically since then, as I spoke about before. But what I want you to think about is also, when you're thinking of leveraging this, and that you've had the training and you have the qualifications, that you'll need to get your name out there. And one of the ways that you can do it, and it's just one of the ways, but it's a good one because the public, because they're more aware of the ICF, they go there, and there's literally, when you join the ICF and you get your credential, etc., you can get listed on the website, and you can have your name and all your qualifications and so on. And what is happening is that individuals and organizations, it's one resource for them, and they will go there and do some searches, and it's becoming more and more sophisticated as it's grown. And so that's just I'm just using that as an example, but I will share with you that when I did that and I listed myself, I actually within I think it was about 6 months or so, I started to get, I don't want to mislead anybody that I was getting hundreds of people inquiring, but I absolutely got inquiries as a result of people seeing me on that website. So think about that. Think about how are you going to leverage your training and your qualifications. And again, is it going to fit with you? How is it going to align with your goals and your objectives? Okay, and so I'm going to just move along here, and I'm just double checking. All right. So then, and I have thoughts about this, which program is right for you? And I said on the last one, actually, I'm going to go back to it for a second. What is the best choice for you right now? Let me give you a little insight into what possible ways you can look at this. When I got into coaching, there weren't a lot of choices. There was maybe at the very, very most, maybe, I don't know, 7 or 8 coaching schools or coaching programs. And so it wasn't as hard. And in my case, the one that I chose, I'd heard from someone else. I could see that it could fit in with my lifestyle. I could take classes when I wasn't at work, and I was able to do it from my home. In other words, because I didn't have a lot of funds, being supporting a family and doing all of that. So what I want you to think about is what's going to work for you right now. There are choices you can make where you fly somewhere and you spend a week somewhere, and then maybe you have some classes in between, and then you spend another week back. So you need to recognize, there's going to be additional costs, meaning aside from the program, I've got to travel, I've got to invest in that way. Will that work for me? The other piece to this is that, for example, I've been faculty on for 2 university executive coaching programs. I was the head of one of the university's programs, and the other one, I was their very first faculty at UT Dallas, actually, when they started their executive coaching program. And those are great. They're great programs, and they're quite expensive. And some are virtual, some are not, some require flying here and there and this and that. But here's the piece about it is that if you look, and I'm going to have a chart up in a minute of the different requirements for the different levels. You can grow into this over time. In other words, some of the programs will provide you with 125 hours of coaching education. But recognize that when you'll get that's fantastic, you still have other requirements that you will have to fulfill that can take quite a bit of time. And there may be a benefit for you to chunk it. In other words, take some now and get to that first level and then expand your training, because here's the other thing that I learned too. And now, because there are so many choices out there and various specialties that are evolving and so on, that's something that you can evolve into that you may not know right now. In other words, you don't know what you don't know, and that you may decide, oh, I can get to that first level right now, or within a period of time, and then I can move to the different levels. So really think about how that's going to work for your life and what is right for you now, because you can continue to educate yourself as a coach as you move along. You can continue to get your coaching hours in for the different levels of credential. And what I'm going to do is I'm now going to flip to that. Just a second here. I just want to make sure I'm going to the right, yes. Okay. So let's have a look at this. These are the different credentials that you can get with the ICF, and you will see it's fairly straightforward, but it's important to recognize that, for example, the first level, which is what I call the ACC, great. You've got to complete 60 hours of coaching education. You've got to have 10 hours of mentor coaching. You've got to have 100 hours of coaching experience. That's where things start to get interesting, because it takes time to achieve those hours, because you've got to have people to work with, and they've got to be bona fide coaching clients. And what I mean by that, so for example, if you're in an organization and you're going to be, and this is a tip I will give you because I think it's important. You will be, if you're going to coach people in that organization, you need to, first of all, they cannot be your direct reports. So in other words, they have to be arm's length. You can't be coaching direct reports in order for those coaching hours to qualify when you apply for your credential. So that's really important. Now, here's another piece that I think is really important as well. In this particular case, with this first level, it is 100 hours of coaching. 75 of those hours have to be paid coaching hours, and 25 of them can be what we call pro bono. If you're working within an organization and you are going to be coaching some people in that organization, again, who are not your direct reports, it is important that whoever you report to can say, as part of your, in order for it to be qualified as paid coaching hours, that, excuse me, that whoever your boss is, your supervisor, your manager, whoever, can say that as part of the work you do, you are required to coach. Coaching is part of your job, part of your role. Then you will be able to count that as paid coaching hours, which is important. Very, very important to know that. And if you think about it, and actually, Sandra, I'm just curious. I'm just going to ask you another question, because you are very close to doing this. I'm curious because I know you said on your little bio that was at the beginning of our slide, you had, I think it was, or I saw it somewhere, 199 hours. Is that right?
Yes.
So how long has that taken you to get those hours in?
198 hours of training.
Oh, sorry. Excuse me. No,
Yes.
sorry. I said that wrong. 100 hours of
Coaching. Yes.
Sorry.
It's taken me a year and a half. I did take my time though. For me, that was a choice. I didn't want, because like I said, I have a full-time job.
Yeah.
So on top of that, so I wanted to take my time and also to figure out what kind of coach I wanted to be. So that took longer as well, because I wanted to make sure I knew my favorite clients, my favorite type of clients and stuff like that. So, but a year and a half, and I got more than 100 hours at this point.
Okay, so thank you. And see, the point I'm trying to make, you may get your training hours in, but it's still going to take time to get the coaching hours in.
Oh,
And
yes.
so, yes. And so when you're looking at the various coach trainings that are out there, my suggestion is to think about that, because that, and actually, Sandra, you said something very interesting. You said, and we did not plan this, by the way, I'm just, this is just coming out as a result of our conversation now, that you weren't sure initially, or you didn't know what kind of a coach you were going to be, or what kind of coaching you were going to do. Is that right?
That's absolutely right.
Right. And so that's a point I want to make, is that you may get your initial coach training, get your, get the skills down, get the hours for ACC, etc. And as you continue to grow and develop in this profession, you may take other trainings, right?
Yes.
Right. So that gives you that option, versus if you just jump into one that has all of those hours. Not that that's not a bad choice. Heavens, I'm not saying it isn't, but just recognize that, it's not necessarily the best choice for everyone to do that. And I think that's important. And also you'll see the other two levels, and you can see that it's going to take a little bit of time to get there, because the next level is PCC level. Again, 125 hours. You're going to have 125 hours of coach training, the same 10 hours of mentor coaching, but 500 hours of coaching experience. So look at, how much time you're going to be able to put to this, and how long that's going to take. That, generally speaking, in all the experience I've had as a coaching educator, and having people come to UT Dallas, Royal Roads University in Canada, and other programs I've been aligned with, that can take a fair bit of time. So just start recognizing that. And also another key important piece that I want to mention about this is that you cannot start counting your coaching hours until after the start of your coach-specific training. The ICF used to allow that you could count hours that you had got from years before. That has changed because they've changed the requirements. So it has to be from the start of your coach-specific training. I think that's an important point. And then if you look at the Master Certified Coach designation, that is going to be 2,500 hours of coaching experience. And that is going to take quite a while, trust me, quite a while for you to get that. And in fact, I wanted to share another little tidbit of information that you might find of value. And that is, currently, right now, in the world, with the ICF, there are currently 8,694 ACC credentialed coaches. This is just give you another sense of it. And there are, sorry, excuse me, I said that wrong. There are 13,331 ACC credentialed coaches. There are 8,694 PCC coaches, and there are 880 MCC coaches. That gives you another, perspective. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and I think this is also important, as I've been around for a while, organizations who are looking to hire coaches are not specifying what level as a general rule. They are specifying, and they're making various specifications, but one of them is that they hold an ICF credential, but they're not saying which one, because as you can see, it takes time. And there's many parts that will make you a valuable coach to someone, because generally speaking, what will happen is they'll love that you have a credential, but they'll also, when they're looking to hire a coach, whether it's internal in an organization or external, they're going to look at what is your background? they're going to want something you have. That's what they're going to be looking at. And so generally speaking, your background will play a role, certainly initially, when you are in coaching. And I just want to double check here because, oh, I see there's various things going on in the chat, but it looks like they're being answered. Yes, and there's been some recent changes, and I can see Sandra Mall, thanks for helping Carlitha out. There's a voluminous amount of information on the ICF website that I encourage you to look at to become familiar with what are the requirements. All right. And so then I want to just quickly check in any questions, because I wanted to make sure that there's any questions or any comments anybody wants to make. Okay, I'm going to move along. So then, with about, I think we've got less than 15 minutes to go to get to the top of the hour. So of course, when we hold a webinar, we always like to say, well, you know, we could be a good choice for some of you, perhaps. And I'm just going to say, we're ICF, ACSTH approved. So anything you take from us, any of our programs are all ICF approved, and that makes it so much easier when you go to apply, because you literally simply submit the certificates that we give you when you complete our programs. In our case, and this probably comes from when I first got into coaching, although I was doing the classes via the telephone at that time. I embraced technology 10 years ago to make it as easy as possible for people to learn this. I wanted to make it easier, and I wanted to make it accessible to people. And so our classes are live, meaning they're not recordings you watch, they're live, they're virtual. You're on, similar to this, just very similar to this, only is slightly different. And they're interactive. I mean, they have to be interactive because coaching, when it's taught, needs to be interactive. You have to have back and forth, and our trainers are modeling coaching the whole time that they're delivering this. So they're live they're live virtual interactive classes. They're cost effective. We've made them, and that's my passion, is to make, as I said, to make it accessible, relatively accessible to as many people as possible, because I have seen what happens when people learn it and when they experience coaching. This, in our case, you can complete it in 6 months, but you don't have to. There's some choices that you make in terms of what the time is going to work for you. And there is also an option with our Train the Trainer program that you could become a coaching educator as well. I have found that a number of people who get into coaching, and it certainly was the case with me, even though it was not my intention at all, was that I also, in addition to being an executive coach, I also became a coaching educator. And it was certainly, and what I found, and what I mean by that is not necessarily that I'm teaching all these certified coaching programs, but that I was educating organizations how to leverage coaching and teaching their leaders and managers coaching skills. Not that they were all going to become certified coaches, but what if they could have some of these skills and leverage that as part of their leadership? And so this was something that I had no idea would happen when I first got into coaching. And what's happening now in the world of coaching is that more and more we're really seeing a growth in leaders and managers wanting to learn these skills, not necessarily to become credentialed, but wanting to learn these skills as part of the work they do. Am I making sense here? So, again, I'm just looking and double checking if there's any questions. Okay. So then, and I just want to jump in here. I want to just jump in and ask Sandra Auger, is there anything you feel I've forgotten or you would like to add? I'm not putting you on the spot. I just thought suddenly, because it's so great to have you here.
That seems pretty clear to me. There were some questions in the chat, but Sandra M was her usual beautiful self that answered all the questions. So I think it's a no. It was very, at least to me, it was very clear.
Okay. All right. So great. Thank you. And so what I want to say is, what's next? Well, if this is the right choice for you, join our next fast track, because that will give you all those hours for your ACC level. And we have one starting up on July the 9th. Or contact us if you want to talk more, and contact and schedule a conversation with Sandra Auger, because Sandra is experienced and knows all about our programs and has completed them all. And certainly also, if you want to bring coaching into your organization, I'm happy to speak with you as well. And so I'm just going to throw it back. We are doing great in our time. And I'm just curious, I'm curious to know, and you can put this in the chat, and I'm just going to move my slide across for a second. What are you walking away with as a result of today's webinar? What are you taking away as a result of what we've talked about today? I'm curious. Anybody? You can just put it in the chat. More clarity. Okay. Push in the right direction. Better understanding. Okay, great. Yep. Okay, good. This is such a, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us again, because I know even when I go on the ICF website, there's so much information that it can get. I see somebody nodding. Janet's nodding her head, I think. That it can get quite confusing. Trust me, I go on there myself at times, because I always get a question sometimes that I have never had before, and I go, okay, hang on a second, and I'll go and you can also call them. Absolutely, you can call them as well for any help. But we are also happy to support you as best we can. Okay, so one start coaching. Ooh, okay, good. Yes, and I'm seeing Lax. The education hours are also built upon, correct. Not exactly sure what Lax means, but you can add to your coaching hours. So for example, if you take 60 coach specific training. Yes, okay, good. Okay, we've got such a great team here okay, is there anything else anybody wants to add or any questions? Otherwise, we will let you get back to your busy lives, and we would welcome you to join us, or even connect up with us to just clarify even more. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your day, and thank you for attending. Bye-bye. Thanks so much, Sandra Auger and Sandra Mall, for all your help. It's just great.
Thank you.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Good. Do your fast track include mentoring? Ah, yes, we have 7 hours of, I see a question there, 7 hours of group mentor coaching. You will still need to have 3 hours of one-on-one that you will still need. And we include 7 hours of those, the group mentor coaching hours, because it requires 7 group and 3 one-on-one. I'm just keeping my eyes open here, and I'm going to end the meeting then. Okay, thank you so much, everybody.
Bye.
Okay, bye.